Hal Laren, welcome to Creator in Conversation. How are you keeping today?
I am very good. I am always very good. I try to be because that's the best way of being creative.
That's it, exactly. It's all about the mindset, isn't it? No one wants to be, it's bad enough that we're in a room isolated for most of our day. You don't want to be in a bad mood while you're doing it as well.
Well, I find if you feel bad, you draw bad, and also I've learned recently, um, if you're not feeling 100%, you don't. I mean, I've had four books on the back shelf that I've been wanting to finish, and I've been like, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, and then I started going on a diet and doing a lot of exercise and walking, not running because not I'm not that crazy. But and as soon as I started doing all these healthy things, I felt better, and I finished two books in 2 weeks that have been sat on my shelf for 4 years. And I'm like, right, let's get these finished, let's get them published, let's get them out, and onto Kickstarter and stuff. So if you feel well and you are positive, you're far more likely to want to either A, do work, or B, finish work. Um, and yeah, yeah, positive mental attitude. I know we're artists and we're meant to be, you know, miserable, but it doesn't help us get work done.
No, absolutely. And that's actually a really important point just at the offset, because in previous guests we was talking about this. It's important to take care of yourself because it's very easy just to, stay at the drawing board, hunched over, and then you're snacking and stuff. And like it's important to take those breaks, take care of yourself. And it reminds me of Grant Morrison. I think it was when they were doing The Invisibles, they had a character based on themselves. And as the character was going through the ringer, they were kind of like falling apart at the seams. So they said, okay, I'm going to change this around and make everything go well for this character. And they just started doing martial arts in real life and just building themselves back up. So yeah, absolutely. And I
I mean, it's
see
one of
that.
those things when you draw, if you draw things like superheroes, they're all doing these amazingly active things while we're sitting here just getting fatter. And it's like people say, you need to work out. I said, I've just drawn, 4 pages. That's working out. And look, he's getting fitter in the pictures. They're like, yeah, but you're not.
Oh yeah, no, I'm starting to feel it more and more on my neck now these days that I never did before. But I suppose that's I got to take my own advice onto that one, get up and stretch more.
I mean, I know a couple of artists who, they've let their health deteriorate to the point where they're not getting enough sunlight, so they're getting poorly just because of that. And you think you need to eat, and you need to get out and about. And I don't think I get cabin fever. I tell the wife I get cabin fever, so I get an excuse to go to the pub like every once in a while. But it's as an artist, it's very important to get out of the artwork and socialize because you forget what you think people would like to buy this kind of book. And if you, let's say, go to the pub and you have a chat with some people, they're like, what are you talking about? You've been in your cave too long. So it's yeah, health and getting out is, and being of good mind genuinely really helps most artists. And I think most of us just retire back to just drinking even more and stuff. Then, I mean, I don't particularly drink much anymore, but it's important to do that kind of getting out and socializing and getting a bit of actual exercise as well. So you're having a bit of good and a bit of bad to help you, keep chipper.
Mhm. No, absolutely, and it's true. Like a lot of people now, it's a two-sided sword. Well, on social media, we can connect quite easily with each other. We can promote our projects, connect, but then it's not really the same. It's more of a parasocial relationship. But as you say, going down to the pub, hanging out with your friends, getting that meal, going to the cinema, that's so important. And not just in comics, but just in any field. Everyone
Yeah,
now
I mean, I
seems to
think
be.
social medicine is really quite key. I mean, the alcohol's great, but actually having chats with people about, you know, oh, what are you up to? And they, I mean, I've had the joy of working and running pubs and working in restaurants, and you know, I loved all those jobs. They were hard work and they kept me fit. But when you sit and draw all day, you know, your metabolism slows down, and you don't realize it that you're getting yourself wiped out because you're thinking, if I just do another couple of books, and you're like, stop, get healthy, do your books, and then you'll be, far more uh, wanting to do better books instead of just, your books get bleaker and bleaker, and as they get bleaker, you get sicker and iller, and then So yeah, I think it's very very important thing to do.
Yeah. And the natural light is really very practical to begin with as well. Because here in the studio, we have different light bulbs to the rest of the building. We got them kind of the ones that emulate natural light as much. We have like three windows because when I moved in, I was like, I can't get those yellow bulbs because that was saturated if I'm doing, the
Yeah,
students are walking. We need as much natural light as possible. What's the setup you have there yourself? Do you have like your own space you can walk out of? Yeah.
windows, lots of
Windows, yeah.
windows. I mean, I used to before my kids, I used to draw from the time I woke up until like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then you realize the more work you do, the more work there is to be done. And
Mhm.
if you don't put a full stop on it, I could carry on working until 4 in the morning now. But I try to do the best by like waking up, doing a 9 till 5:30, and stopping so that it gives my brain time to. Let's say I finish a picture at 5:30, I
Mhm.
won't go back to it until the following day. I won't post it or publish it or show anybody until the next day in case, I've been drawing so much and so focused on it. And then I come back to the next day and her head is 20% bigger than her body. You get so engrossed in it. But I have, I like to work with the daytime because I have, these two massive windows in my office.
Mhm.
So I get good light, keeps me, positive. I'm a Leo, so I need sunlight. When it's rainy and grey, I'm like, I'll draw something, dark and blood red raven. I drew blood red raven primarily through winter, so it was
Oh,
like
there you go.
grumpy and miserable. And then I've done, my recent book. I've been doing that during as the sun's been coming back up. So I'm doing a lot more colourful stuff. So I don't know. Maybe that's got nothing to do with it, but I think sunlight makes you draw probably more vibrantly than when you're in the winter years, or it's just dark and gloomy. But
Absolutely. There's definitely a balance to be struck with it. And I suppose for our audience, just watching or listening in as well, just to give some background to yourself, Hal, as I got to know you, I always knew you primarily as a digital based artist. Like comic book artist was a very digital. Um, do you have much difference in like adapting from the light source being down on the page from like traditional, and then coming from behind the screen? Like when
I
did
mean,
you make
I
the
I
leap to digital?
I used to draw by hand with like rotary pens, and I loved it. And then I had kids, and it was kind of like you'd be 5 hours in, and there'd be like a nudge from your kids, and there it all goes. So I thought, no more, I'm done with that. And I found one of the main things I do, I'll always wear sunglasses when I'm outside, purely because you can either make a choice, digital light or natural light. And so when I'm outside, I always wear sunglasses. Not because of the sun, it's just because my eyes are so used to staring at my screen that this doesn't hurt, but that does. So
Mm.
well, not really hurt, but the in between changes isn't apparently good for your eyes. Or so I've read,
Mm.
but who knows? I'm
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
wrong. But I've done that a lot, and simple things like that. I said, digital working is, it. I really enjoy it because I get to do either importing my 3D stuff or my illustrated stuff, or combining, them, or
Mhm.
just doing lots and lots of globby action brush Photoshop things. Um, it makes my work a lot smoother than me having to uh, blue pencil, ink, scan it, then color it, where I can just go straight into color.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do like doing traditional stuff. I've got back into doing actual line work illustration
Mhm.
of recent, because I'm working on many things for myself, but I thought I'd go all the way back to basics, and I'm doing a book at the moment which is Aurora Starfield, which is all like remember Space Ace in the 80s. It's very very
Mhm.
Space Ace stroke Barbarella kind of woman in space fighting alien things, but it's all illustrated, and it's nice to jump between different styles for different books. But yeah,
Mhm.
digital is, for me, it's a no-brainer. It saves me so much time, and because I like to, write my own stories and illustrate them, it I don't have to go out and hire a colorist. I can figure out how to learn how to do that myself, which is really nice.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. Like it's the tools that are available to us now. You literally have an entire studio pipeline now at your fingertips. If you go back to the 90s, you at least need at least two other people to cover the workload. Um, just to back up what you were saying there as well with the digital process, like you're not alone. A few months ago, we had Dave Gibbons on. He was saying that when he made the transition to the Cintiq drawing, he wiped his arm and he went, "Oh no, I smudged the artwork." And then he went, "Oh no, wait, it's digital. This is great." So it is that it does make a huge,
I
huge
mean,
difference.
you do get in the habit when you do digital drawing, you do get in the habit of when you're reading. You try and
Just
when you're reading a real book, you're like, why can't I zoom in on this book? I do that so often. I feel so stupid, and I'm like, I've done it again. But it's you get in the habit of just going zoom, turn, and then you go, what's wrong with this paper?
And how did you break into comics then yourself? Because it's not just comics that you've done. Like we can get into a lot of things. You even back when Star Trek Discovery came out, you
Yeah,
doing some of the
I did a bunch
concept
of
design.
stuff with that. I did for Star Trek Discovery. I was working. I just left my print job to move on to doing full time. I mean, I've done freelancing several times, and before I was like, I've always thought becoming a freelancer, you need to have lots of clients and lots of money behind you, and that would help. But I think confidence gives you all of those things. If you believe you've got enough time or you've got the effort to put the work in to either find clients or speak with people or push yourself, you don't need to have all those things. And I phoned up a couple of production houses, and then I spoke to a couple of uh, costume making companies, and they said, "Come on down." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I came on down and saw how they were building like uh, Gal Gadot's armor and all
Oh.
the Thor Ragnarok armor. I was like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" So and just joking, I said, "Well, I do a lot of concept work." I mean, it was at the time my concept work was primarily for companies for either windows or headpieces or headphones, and they said, "Okay." And they said, "Do you want to do some Star Trek Discovery concept work?" And I was like, Paramount stuff, and I did that, and that was, yeah, I did a bunch of spacesuits and jetpacks and helmets and stuff, which was really, really cool. And then I moved on to doing some commercials and some films. But before all that, it was always comics, and I used to go to, comic conventions and bump into people, and they'd be like, "Oh, if you want to do a comic, I'd love to see you do a comic." And you kind of do a picture, send it in. They'll be like, "Yeah, okay, I wasn't great," and they'll be like, "No, do a 6 page short story." So I did one, and that was ships, ship's cat for Accident UK, their pirates comic, and that was like, I mean, I've done loads of comics for myself in like school time, which were like, printed on photocopy paper and stuff like that. But this was my first published one, and it was really, really good. And I got the bug, and I was like, okay, this is really, really nice. And then just before my daughter was born, I thought I wanted to have something that I created that wasn't just me going to work in a restaurant and then coming, saying, "There's nothing wrong with being a waiter." But it's nice to say to your kids, "Well, I've done this book and this book." They weren't great books, but they were enough for me to go, "Well, I've made some published my own stuff, and I've sat at conventions, and I've sold a bunch of books, and people seem to come back for more. So maybe it's all right." And that kind of motivates you to do more books and different books and change your art style. And you know, before you know it, I could do comics, animation, concept work. Brilliant, you know.
It's amazing. No, it's so good. It's so great to hear because obviously here at the Academy, we put the emphasis on transferable skills. And I also teach elsewhere, and it's really important for me if it's any type of design student to let them know. Like you mentioned there about contacting the costume companies, and I'm like, I teach fashion students, and I'm like, you have comparable skills for video game character design, asset creation. Like, why not investigate that? That could be an opportunity, even if that's where they didn't foresee themselves operating. Like, that's so important to seek out and build your portfolio and experience. And so, in speaking with you today, we recently had a number of speakers this season on the podcast talking about the business side of comics. And as this will go out, we'll get this out next Tuesday. We drop one every Tuesday. So we had Fair Garcia this week talking about the entrepreneurship side of things, and we touched upon Kickstarter and crowdfunding. And obviously, as yourself, you've done a number of successful Kickstarter campaigns now. So I was just wondering, before we get into your current campaign and such, what was your entry point to Kickstarter? Like, how did you first come across the platform? How has your experience been with it? What have you learned along the way? And obviously, I think it's important that we for our listeners and audience, let them know that it's a full-time job as well when you do these campaigns. Sometimes people think they just drop something and
I
just
mean,
sit back.
I mean, so, social media is not uh, user friendly for comic people,
Mm,
and I think the thing is, social media and conventions used to be very useful for comic publishing and especially for indie publishing. And I have lots of friends who they pour their heart and souls into their books, and their books are brilliant. And they dig into their pockets and they print for themselves their own books, and they spend good money making good products. And then they go to a convention, and the mentality in most comic conventions, not all, but most comic conventions, is you'll sit there, you'll spend a fortune on a table, you'll spend a fortune on hotels, accommodation, your food, just to present people your books. And then they'll say, "Have you got any Marvel or DC?" And it's like, this is an independent comic section, and
mm,
it's not so much the audience's fault. It's the convention system is not as uh, indie heavy friendly as it could be, as it used to be. And I have friends who I'm trying to get them into Kickstarter because I'm saying, you've got some amazing things here. Your artwork is beautiful. And how much, have you made this year just doing conventions? And so I've done like 30 conventions this year.
well,
And I said, okay, and how much have you spent, or how much have you made in total? And then take away the cost of uh, all your tables, your transit, and your hotels. And they'll be like, I've probably made, out of all the money I've made, maybe 5% or 10% of that money was left after conventions and all that kind of stuff. And you think, how you can't survive as an artist on 5%.
mm,
And you think there must be a better way. And I started doing my first Kickstarter. I mean, I followed a few people on Kickstarter and backed a few comics, and I was like, okay, this is pretty good. Most of them got fulfilled. There are a few people out there who didn't, but I'm sure there was reasons for that. And then I started doing my own comics on Kickstarter and started promoting them on social media. And it was a bit of a leap of faith. I didn't know, like, best times to launch. So I launched it near Christmas, which is the worst time to do it because everybody wants to save their money for Christmas shopping, or they want their comics in before Christmas. And so that was a bit of a hard slog. But there are things you learn, like, when's a good time, things to do, things not to do. Um, and it was successful. So I thought, I'll do another one. And it was like all the effort of going to a comic convention, but without any of the, yeah, Kickstarter takes percentage, but without any real waste. Instead of building a book and then, you know, let's say you're a publisher, building a book, paying an artist, a writer, and a colorist, and then somebody to put it all together as a PDF and get it printed and shipped and handled, all that stuff, and then you go to a convention and say, please buy my book, please. And they're like, and you'll see people, they're kind people I find at conventions are the nicest people, and they just want to let you have their stories. And they'll sit there and it's like, how you doing? You all right? You having a nice time? Yeah, it's lovely. And you can see that it's like hearts breaking because it's then they're not seen as really flourishing as they should be. But on Kickstarter, I mean, I combine my Kickstarters with my Whatnots. So I'll do like a Kickstarter and I'll launch it on Whatnot. So my Whatnot audience can go to Kickstarter and hopefully back the book. And then I can take a variant cover of that to Whatnot and sell it just for my clients on Whatnot. And Whatnot seems to be quite good for comics.
yeah. What's the story behind Whatnot? I've heard a few people talk about it, but that's kind of a
I mean,
new
a
introduction
lot
to
of
me.
people just use it to buy and resell comics, which is
Okay.
okay. You buy a comic for let's say a couple of quid, you read it, and then you want to resell it, but there's bad things where people go and sell comics for silly money. But it's like I like doing it because I get to do sign books, live on shows. So, pick up your copy of, Trojan Cobalt, signed by me right now. Here you go. I'm going to put it in the bag. And you can talk about stuff where on a Kickstarter, you tell people about stuff, but you
Mm.
don't talk to them about stuff. Um, but I find it's good. I mean, I have a couple of artist friends who also do whatnot shows, and they can sell their prints, they can do signings, they can do custom illustrations for people, and it is very, very good. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
I'm not massive on whatnot, and
Mhm.
it is something you need to keep on top of if you want to get your audience to grow. You need to kind of do a show every week. I probably do one every 2 months because I'm too busy drawing. Um,
Gotcha. Yeah.
but I think with Facebook, the algorithm kind of is a bit tight on trying to show you stuff. And so I used to promote a comic and it would be everywhere. And now you can promote your comic everywhere and you won't see it anywhere.
Yeah. This is
But
true. Yeah.
it's these are the things, and I find that whatnot isn't so uh, blinkered. So you can,
Hmm.
you put your cover of the book you're going to be launching up on your video. You do an hour show talking about the comic, showing the artwork, showing, thing, and then you can sell it or auction it at whatever prices people want to bid on it.
Okay.
But you can also launch your Kickstarter on it to drive people through, and it's good. I find it a very useful tool.
Great. No, it's interesting to see the platform support. And I think that's important as well is the diversification of platforms. Like have your social media presence,
Mm.
but also then have your Kickstarter and then the whatnot as ancillary and supplemental to it. Because again, as I was saying at the start of the episode, some folks will think I'll just, launch this Kickstarter campaign and then, they sit back and there's no engagement of progress. And they're wondering why isn't anyone engaging, but this is something you have to budget your time and effort
I
into
mean,
as well.
most people when they do a Kickstarter, you do all your promotion beforehand. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is, I've currently got three Kickstarters I mean, I never launch a Kickstarter unless my book is finished
Yeah.
because I don't want to be having people saying, "Have you finished that page yet? Have you finished that page yet?" Nobody wants to work that way.
Yeah.
So I've got three Kickstarters that are all on pre-launch. So basically the page is there. You can follow it. If you like what you see in the pre-launch page, you can follow along, and when it launches, you get the information. Already one way of building an audience. Then once I've finished this Kickstarter, I start talking about my next book. This is coming very soon. Please check it out. Here's a link to the Kickstarter pre-launch page. So you're already telling people, come along. And if you were to do that when you launch a Kickstarter, you're fighting uphill, trying to drag people, kicking and screaming to your book. And you spend more of your Kickstarter hating your book because you're trying to force people to buy it than you
Gotcha.
just go, hey, people, there's a book out there. Come get it. Come get it. It'll be out on Tuesday, and they go. So it's pre-launch is the most important thing. Get all your advertisement or a lot of your promoting or talking to people about your stuff beforehand. So that's a good thing to do.
And what's the fulfillment like then? So do you have, I see you do like different covers, file covers and such. Do you have a printer local? Because you have a background in printing as well. So do you publish locally and then send out in the post yourself, or do you work with fulfillment centers, or how does that
I mean,
go?
it all depends. I mean, there are people who get a lot more orders than I do. So, but I personally, I like to do it all myself.
Mhm.
When you do Kickstarters, you will be inundated with uh, services from people who say, "Hey, I'll do all your promotion and I'll do your printing, and we'll just take 20% of your Kickstarter." And if you're launching a Kickstarter, before you launch Kickstarter, you want to find a printer. B, you want to make sure that the printing they do is good and that they can send stuff to you in good time, and it's great. I mean, I live in Northamptonshire and I use a printer down in Swindon, which is a
Mhm.
very small family business printer. MHP Swindon, big shout out. They do all my printing. Um, and they print my books with the hollow foils, the lamination, the gloss, great color, good books, and the numbers are good. So having a good printer, job done. As long as your numbers aren't silly massive, do all the packaging and shipping yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll do the. I find the best tricks I do is I'll spend one day putting all the books in, then another day putting all the rewards in, and then one day putting all the labels in, and then taking to the post office. But you will get there are I don't know if they're scams, but they are quite irritating. You'll get messages on Facebook and whatever saying, "Hey, I've seen your great Kickstarter," or you'll get messages through Kickstarter, which Kickstarter normally filter out. But they'll say like, "Hey, let me do your printing and shipping and handling," and you're like, "Please." And that does get a bit, 50 million Nigerian dollars, please. And it's like you're like, this is not real. I don't want. Thank you very much. I'm good. I've got a printer and I'm going to ship it all myself. So I like to print it, sign it, pack it all myself. Saves on money, makes it more financially viable to do it. So
What
yeah.
does the post office workers say when they see you come in with the big bag of books
Well,
to
I mean,
post?
I live in a smallish town and I've got a very nice post. They were sad at me one year because I went online and I did all my Royal Mail stuff at home. And that saved me 30%,
Oh, cool.
but they don't get any commission on that. And so I went
Ah.
in with these bags of stuff, and they were like, "We don't make any money when you do that." I'm like, "Yeah, but I spend more money for doing it this way." But because they were nice and they are my friends, I will always take it down to them, pay a little bit of extra money, like, "Yeah, you're welcome." But yeah, it's one of those things. But they always come in. I'll give them a couple of copies of books, like just so they know what they're shipping. Um, but
That's nice. And do you ever have a bad experience with the fluctuation of, the price of postage? I know with the tariff situation in the US, because we've experienced quite a bit where, like, I sent stuff out and it could take, honest to God, a full calendar year and it would come
mm,
back saying, not found at this address. I contact the customer, it is the right address now, you resend it. And then others, we had one instance where someone in Australia got the book, like didn't get the book. Their neighbor got next door neighbor got the book, and then their book was sent back months later. Just it's
I
just
mean,
crazy
I've had
stuff. Like,
the issue with I mean, I did my last Kickstarter before this one was the only one that ever failed, and that was when tariffs first came in. And I had lots
yes,
of people messaging me saying we really wanted to have the book, but we didn't want to get stung with the $80 import tariff tax. And I was like, okay. So I did some research, found out good ways of doing it, good ways of shipping, to try and keep the shipping at the relative costs of a normal, getting a book and not paying for a car. And I've got that sorted out. So it's a matter of just, take my books to the post office. I do all the paperwork there. I pay for everything I can, and it goes out. And you have to find out, like, DPD are no good for European shipping. Royal Mail is great for pretty much everywhere. It's the safest way of going, and you can do recorded, and it's trustworthy enough to know that they're actually going to get the books. I did have one person go, "Oh, I see a new Kickstarter. Bit dubious because I haven't received my book yet." And I was like, "It went out like 2 years ago." But you know, as you've been following me on all my Kickstarters, don't worry, I'll send you out another book. He goes, "Well, I'm going to back this one. Could you send me it with this one?" I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm really sorry." I said, "No, it's totally fine. I want you to have my books, but you shouldn't be waiting 2 years before you let me know you never got it. I'm happy. Here they are in stock. Have it." Um, but yeah, it's one of those things. I have had like returns when you've sent things to like South Korea, and don't know why that didn't get through. Uh, Ones to
it's
North Korea went
interesting.
through fine.
Yeah, no, it is just curious. Like sometimes it's just an added hassle. Like I never done a Kickstarter, but I have an online store. So everything that you're saying there about the certain days of packaging and labeling and then bringing it down, I have the local post office as well since we moved into the academy, but I try to stagger it because it's a very busy one where everyone's collecting like a pension or something. So like there's usually a busy queue. But yeah,
The
there's so
trick is
much
make
tracking.
friends with your postmaster, whoever is the nicest person in that post office. Because I'll do it one day. I think I went in there once with 500 boxes, and I just went, "What's best?" Because this was after I did it all at home.
Yeah.
The last Kickstarter. The next year I went in with 500 boxes. Said, "Look, here you go," and he was like, "I said, well, you said you wanted to do it." So I just literally he goes, "Look, here's my number. Call me when it's done, and I'll come in and I'll sign in all the European slips and all that stuff, and we'll come and do it all." And he said, "That's fine. Do it that way." And then I thought I'll be nice on him next year. So I went in one day, all the Americans, and then all the
Yeah.
French, and then all the English, and it was like. much easier. So yeah, staggering is nice to your post office.
Yeah, that's the one. That's more or less how I do it now. And so that's really insightful now with Kickstarter, and like it kind of gives us an insight into the highs and the lows behind it. And yeah, that's just it's just great to hear someone who's actually practicing on a track record. So let's talk about some of your previous projects then, leading up to the latest one. So, what was the first Kickstarter project that you did? And are these books still available to buy directly from you now still? And do you have them stocked
Yeah,
in any shops?
well, I what I do is another really good practice I find. Even though I have like an online shop, people,
And what's that online shop
oh,
address?
I wouldn't worry about it. Nobody ever goes to it.
Go
Um,
on, give it a shout out.
well,
Give it a shout.
it's the Laren store, but
Okay.
nobody ever goes to it. So I find a really good trick is if you, let's say with Kickstarter, it's all or nothing. If you don't reach your goal, you don't get any money.
Mhm.
And so, what is a really nice thing you can do is you can add all your prior books that you've created on. Doesn't it, they don't even need to be created on Kickstarter. You can add all your prior books to the add-on section. So, let's say your my first Kickstarter was Trojan Nova, which was the first in the Trojan series. That's also now available in the add-on section, so people can, if they buy issue one, if they buy the new issue, they can go on the add-on section and buy all the previous issues. I don't always do all the variant covers on the add-on section because there'd be hundreds of them, but there is a good selection of other books, which also gives you the ability of making your money to get to your goal a lot more achievable. Because people think, well, I'll put it on Kickstarter and hope for the best. But you want to make reaching that goal as easy and simple as possible. So, I'll do variant covers, but I also do metal covers, and they cost quite a bit extra to do. And most people sell metal covers for between 40 and £60. Now, if I'm selling a book, and let's say each book is £10, I'd need to sell, 100 of those to get close to my target. But if I have some metals that are £40, that one book is worth four regular comics.
Mhm.
Add-ons of graphic novels that are 20 quid, that really helps. So it's about finding the best way to simplify you getting to your goal as achievable as possible. And I'm not a Kickstarter master. I don't make millions and millions. I do. I asked for like £1,500. It's enough to cover me putting the artwork time in, me spending time packing and shipping, and getting a book out there. I don't charge myself for doing the artwork, because if I was doing that, I'd be like asking for like 5 or 6 grand for my book. My thing is, if I can make a book, I can get an audience. If I make another book, I can have some more audience, and
Mhm.
it's an accumulative thing. Hopefully, it gets larger. Um, and I did Blood Red Raven on Kickstarter, and I thought, should I do that as a graphic novel? It'd be very easy to do a Kickstarter as a graphic novel. And I thought, well, let's do it the other way. Let's do issue one, issue two, and so on. And the audience got bigger and bigger and bigger. And all the issue one, two, and threes and fours were all available in the add-on section. So I was selling all the issues for the book. And then when I did the graphic novel, most of the people who bought the comic bought the graphic novel. And it's audience building and then achieving a bigger sale on a graphic novel. So it's that was this one. And if people
Awesome.
who are listening to the audio can't see it, but but
It's
it's
great.
it's just nice to do different things and move kind of your way through a Kickstarter. Find out, if you want to make loads of money on your first Kickstarter, you probably won't. Um, but unless you're very, I mean, I just helped my good friend Mark Ryan from Robin of Sherwood and stuff. He was doing his tarot deck, and he needed somebody to help him put the cards together, do the Kickstarter, and he made silly money, but it's on his first Kickstarter. But he's
A no name.
a known name, and by being a known name, he had the audience appeal and the people to follow him. So his Kickstarter went crazy. I'm not a known name. I'm just another indie artist who's, yeah, I've done things for Transformers and RoboCop and all these other comics and stuff. But I'm just a cover artist for them. But for my own stuff, I get to do all of it. And I find Kickstarter is a place where you can show your artwork. People know, if you've got like 10 Kickstarters, they know you're reliable and you're going to deliver. And it's
Mhm.
about building almost like a brand, name for yourself.
Absolutely. No, no, absolutely, absolutely. And so with the actual, so with this coming Kickstarter campaign, give us the elevator pitch onto it.
Elevator pitch. It follows on from issue three, but you don't need issue three to enjoy it. Trojan Cobalt is basically. I'll run you through the first parts. Trojan Nova is like a one-off. They're all like one-shots. Trojan Nova follows this space scientist who's trying to save his home world from his planet being destroyed by a sun that's going to explode. One. Issue two, this character, Talia Morden, she wakes up out of cryostasis where her crew have all been killed, and she's trying to escape her spaceship before she gets killed by an insane AI that's trying to take over somebody's body so that it can escape the spaceship. Issue three, she's fighting against the insane AI on a snowy wasteland. And then issue four, which Trojan Cobalt is after she's been rescued, she's on a spaceship, and the spaceship gets attacked by these cybernetical, death-faced, reanimated corpses, which are called Cobalt Squad. And they're just, what are they there for? Are they there to kill her or what? And so it's that basically. And
That's
that's
awesome. And that's currently a trend. That's a campaign launching now, and there's the cover now for everyone watching over on YouTube. When does the campaign run until? We're recording here on the 19th of May, and this will go out the following Tuesday for us. So this should be airing next Tuesday, which will
it's
be
got
26th.
18 days left in it. And
Great.
currently, I've already reached my goal.
Great.
And so the good thing about Kickstarter is when you reach a goal, it gives you the ability of adding stretch goals. So you can add even more things to the book. Like my aim is if I can get to £2,000, I'm going to, every cover, apart from the
Mhm.
metals, will have like a hollow foil on it. So it'll have that kind of
Awesome.
holographic, I'll see if I can do on one of these, that kind of oil
Oh,
slip
very nice. Yeah.
lamination. So I like to add things to my book to make it even better instead of just giving away stickers and badges. You want to make the book even better for everybody who's already backed you. So you do stretch goals like that, and then you can give away other things like chrome prints or just things really.
Yeah.
But yeah, this ends in 18 days, so you've got little under 3 weeks. Um,
Great.
so it's a fun thing to do. I mean, I do, if I can, I try and get myself ahead of myself. So I do at least three Kickstarters I'm waiting on. I've got the next ones I'm working on is one is a novel. I'm writing a book.
Oh, very good. Cool,
Uh,
cool.
well, I just thought, I've written what
Yeah.
two graphic novels, 20 comics, and a load of short stories. I might as well try a novel, and I get to do a cover, only one, which is really easy. And then I got
What's the
Vampire for
what genre
Last.
is it going to be?
The first one is sci fantasy, so it's basically science fiction, but it also follows the Trojan story of the character from the first Trojan Nova comic, but it's a standalone book. You don't need to have your knowledge of prior issues, but they're also available in the add-on section to help elevate and stuff. But I'm just I'm doing lots of different bits. I've got then Path of the Last. It's another comic I'm doing after this one, which is set at the very end of the universe where superheroes are like gods, and it's the final battle sort of thing. And then my next one after that is the Aurora Starfield, which is all hand illustrated, but on a computer and coloured that way as well. So it's very, very hyper vibrant kind of thing. I will show
Awesome.
you some pictures.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
You click my phone, and where's the flippy? Is there flippy?
This is where
Yes.
Hal drops out of the call now. Oh,
This is the,
brilliant.
this is the Trojan Cobalt cover,
Excellent.
and this is one of the Aurora Starfield covers.
Awesome.
And this
Awesome.
is the Ven Path of the Last cover. I thought I'd pull these up. That's my last graphic novel. That's the next part for that graphic novel. So I'm trying to get my head myself. Oh, that's the blind on my phone camera. I'm still here. I'm just the lights off.
No worries
And
at all.
I just I try my hand at doing as many different things as possible, and we do way upside down shots, all line work. You see,
And
and
what are you using to put it all together? Do you use InDesign or Photoshop or
yeah, I
what
use
should?
I use InDesign. Oh, but it's not going to have that cover. And I use all primarily InDesign. Photoshop, Illustrator. I find Illustrator is uh, really useful for doing illustrations, basically, because when I used to draw with rotary pens and stuff, it was lots of fun, but I'd end up going through so many drafts of it when now I can illustrate in Illustrator just as I would in paper. And you can, I mean, the good thing about it is you can literally, if somebody said, can you print this and put this on the side of a building? There's no limit to the size of vector illustration. So it's really, really handy. Where most of my other work, because it's designed at a certain size, there's only a level of size you can do before you get pixelation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed kind of going all the way around to starting at the beginning again, and then finding that I can now put the beginning at any size I want.
Oh, no, absolutely. And no, it's great to hear because we had Thomas Healy at the start of this season of the podcast, who's the editor-in-chief over at Todd McFarlane Productions, and he was saying that Illustrator is his, sorry, InDesign is his go-to one as well. But it seems these two, like those packets are definitely the ones, because a lot of our audience would be student orientated. So they're probably thinking, what should I be investing in software wise? What should I be accessing? So it's really important to hear from the practice and industry professionals about these tools. And like the factor size is really important. I remember we had Kevin Smith from Cork do a lettering class with some of our students, and he was talking all about the factor sizes and such as well, because they used, I think it might be an Illustrator as well. Oh, it could have been InDesign for the lettering class. But no, that this is brilliant stuff. And before I bring things to a close and wrap up here, I just noticed since we have so many of the Batman figures and the big Batman Returns poster behind you, we should, because I'm a huge Batman fan myself as well, we should talk just a little bit about the, look at that now. Is that a 3D print that you
Currently
did?
building that one. But no, I mean, I do a lot of, as I said, because I do concept stuff, I do a lot of 3D model building. Check on my
Very good.
phone. These aren't mine. These are ones I've found online and printed. I do build my own stuff, but I like Batman. He he uses his knowledge to make himself better, and that's it's one of the things like when AI came out, everybody was jumping on it, and I thought, well, that's going to be a balloon that's going to pop for somebody. So I went off and I started learning Moho, which is a vector animation tool. So just instead of going down that AI route, I thought I'm going to go learn Moho, and from drawing in a vector animation tool, it made me want to get back into drawing again. And so, because of not going that route, I learned another skill, which was AI animation, not AI, uh, vector animation in Moho. That took me back to Illustrator to learn to use my vector skills that I'd learned on something that I wasn't going to particularly use that much into, drawing a whole comic in vector illustration instead of, drawing it my other way. So it's a helpful thing, learning. It's never too late to learn computers and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't really use computers until I was 26. I was always drawing by hand until then, and the uphill slug of having just tons and tons of paper and ink and exhausting. But got into the computers, and now every day is a school day. You can always pick up a pen, or just learn a different software, or learn a different thing you can do in Photoshop. Combining Photoshop and Illustrator. I use a lot of Illustrator is a very, very useful tool for when you're doing 3D models, because if you're building something in 3D, you have to, let's say, you've got a floor plan. Now, if you have to draw that floor plan in 3D, that's one way of doing it. But if you already have the floor plan in vector, you can export that into a 3D package, which you couldn't do with an illustration. So Illustrator is a fundamental tool to use, I think, before you get to Photoshop, which is a far simpler and more robust tool.
No, amazing. No, it's really good. And again, everyone having to the constant student, that's really important. I've yet to
Mm,
meet a professional who isn't willing to go out of their way to try and learn something new.
mm.
That's something you should always try to nurture and keep close. It's the right attitude to have. Um, a while ago, many people watching and listening might know you from a couple of years ago. There was like a fan-made Batman Beyond
Yeah.
pitch that you put out there, and that went quite viral. It's in the days before like big viral was everyone was striving for. it seemed a real shame. It is brilliant. It's a real
Well, the
shame
thing
it
is
didn't
that
really get much like off the interest from DC themselves. Or did anyone from DC ever reach out? I think that just picked up by the fans primarily. Yeah.
well, no, I mean, I've never sold this,
Okay.
and I made one which has a metal cover, and
Oh,
inside you've
nice.
got a little microchip, so you can press the microchip, and it'll play the Batman Beyond animated soundtrack while you're reading the comic. Um, but I sent the PDF to DC once,
Hmm.
uh, just saying, what do you guys think? Are you? And they were like, yeah, we're not really interested in doing a Batman Beyond Elseworldy thing at the moment. And then 3 months later, out came Beyond the White Knight, and I was like, this was called Beyond the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I mean, I'm fine with it. The thing is, with that, there were quite a few YouTube videos about my Batman Beyond stuff, and I wanted to continue the animated shit show. No newfangled story, just continue the show, but from a point of view where Terry McGinnis is completely, he's not got Bruce Wayne anymore. It's just him
Hmm.
on his own, figuring out how to be a Batman. Not all about the gadgets. It's about, what is the man. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I printed this for myself, and
Yeah.
it's a 28-page thing, and it's a let's see if I get to a good page. People probably know that one, where
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sitting in a
pretty good.
cave, all gloomy and brooding. But it's just him dealing with being Batman by himself, like a year one after Bruce is dead, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing ever came of it. But I love Batman
Shame.
Beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's one of the great series. We were fortunate we had Andrea Romano on the show. She did a masterclass here when we first opened, so about 2 years now. But yeah, no, such a good show, and yeah, hopefully never say never, as they often say. So
I keep knocking on that door, but you
yeah,
never know.
yeah,
My
yeah.
artwork, maybe I need to change my because I like to, with each one of my projects, I try and do the artwork differently. So with
Mhm.
Blood Red Raven, it was very gritty and dark and just black, white, and red. And then I do Trojan Cobalt, which is very, you know, uh, muddy but colourful. And then I did Aurora Sapphire, which is super vibrant and and the Batman Beyond stuff was, a very real take on a 2D cartoon. So I just wanted to maybe I need to find the right style for the book to go to them with. So I mean, I might try something different, but I'll keep knocking on the Batman Beyond door forever because it's brilliant.
Batman Beyond Forever. We mixed the two properties.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant, Hal. Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk, and best of luck with the campaign ahead. So just to close out, give us the name of the campaign and where folks can find you online if they want to follow.
So the book is Trojan Cobalt, and it's available on Kickstarter. You can either look up, just type in the word Trojan. This should be the top search on Kickstarter for Trojan Cobalt. Um, and you should be able to check out all the other books I've done on Kickstarter. All the links are there. I'm Hal Laren, and it's not Lauren, it's Hal Laren. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. I don't get any views. But no, I don't think any artist gets any views on TikTok unless you're, wearing a mankini while drawing. But yeah, I love doing comics and I love being an artist, and I'm very very fortunate to be able to do it. And Kickstarter really helps. And I'm not saying don't go to conventions, but use conventions to build your audience, but use Kickstarter to sell your books because it's so much more about your product than it is about being at a hall and feeling like, surely I should be selling more books than this at a convention. I've invested so much time and money. Do a Kickstarter. If people want to buy your book, they will. And yeah, at least you'll find out if you have an audience for your book, because you might put together something that you think is amazing. But, even if I've had it, you've put a book together that you think is amazing, and nobody picks it up. And you think, great. And you put it on Kickstarter, and nobody picks it up.
Hmm.
And you just have to find the right audience for your work. And yeah, why leave the house to do that?
Excellent. No, thanks so much, Hal, and very best of
Anytime.
luck again with it. Thank you.